Trump now taking on big tech, filing a class action lawsuit over its censorship of conservatives. This comes as 36 state attorneys general and the District of Columbia have also announced that they're suing Google for antitrust violations. Joining us now to discuss is President of America First Policy Institute, Brooke Rollins. Brooke, thank you very much for joining us today. We all saw you yesterday at the big press conference as the news was announced. Explain to us first, how does America First Policy Institute work into this?
Well, first, thank you for having me. Yesterday was a banner day. Former president of the United States, who was basically deplatformed, said, I will not stand for this any longer. More importantly, not really about him, but about the thousands and thousands of Americans who have similar situations but cannot push back. I was the president's domestic policy chief in the White House, worked there for 3 years. All the time we were there, we talked quite a bit about what was happening and how the First Amendment and the Constitution and the founders of our country never envisioned a time where our town halls would become virtual and controlled by one or two or three, basically oligarchs and big, huge companies. So how do we push back against that? Parallel to that, after we left and launched the America First Policy Institute with a lot of former cabinet members and some of the superstars from the White House, we started really thinking through how can we move this issue forward. We can't stand down and just say, well, I guess there's not much we can do. And so we began talking with some of the best lawyers in the country. We launched our constitutional litigation partnership. We obviously were in lots of conversations with the president, former president of the United States, and ultimately all the stars aligned and decided that it was time to fight back.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the first to bring this up, Brooke. The pushback that people are giving is the First Amendment has to do with what the government extends to you. It's not a private enterprise sort of thing, even though everybody watching this unfold knows that there's something inherently unfair about taking one side of the aisle and banning them from your platform. So how do you deal with that legally?
So the difference here is Section 230, and not to get into too much technical detail, but in 1996, the Communications Act included Section 230 for a very brand new concept of the internet. And the idea was we needed to protect our children, child pornography, child trafficking, child exploitation. The legislators, elected officials then were very concerned that this new internet would open up a whole new pathway for some really bad things to happen. So they included Section 230, which allowed basically the censorship without the First Amendment backdrop for those who were going to say, no, we're not going to allow that kind of content to flow through this brand new concept of the internet, which at the time had, a couple million people on it. Well, never in a million years would I guess that those who voted for Section 230 would ever think that that would be used someday for the billions of people across the world, the hundreds of millions in America that are using these platforms, for these companies to say, well, under Section 230, we are going to ban you from talking about masking your children, about hydroxychloroquine, about critical race theory, about whether you can use the term illegal alien on Facebook or not. The censorship that's happening is not okay. And these companies have acted as if they are state actors. So it gets into a little bit of legal theory and kind of some very technical legal issues, but there is absolutely a strong case here. Alan Dershowitz was on TV last night, and we were quietly working with him as well, talking about how this is a very, very valid case that has a real chance to make it and win for the American people.
Yeah, and impacting people across this country. We do want to listen to what President Trump had to say regarding Section 230 yesterday.
Other companies in our country, and even in our country's history, have had protection like this. It's, in effect, a massive government subsidy. These companies have been co-opted, coerced, and weaponized by government and by government actors to become the enforcers of illegal, unconstitutional censorship.
So, Brooke, we were mentioning other people that have been impacted by censorship across the board on social media platforms. How can they participate in this and get some more information?
Well, I appreciate you asking that. TakeOnBigTech.com. TakeOnBigTech.com. We have had 30,000 Americans hit that website since yesterday at 11 a.m. Eastern time when we announced this effort. So there is clearly a movement out there that we didn't even really understand how significant it was. But go to takeonbigtech.com, tell your story. It doesn't automatically move you right into the class, but we've already begun to filter through those, and we'll do so continuing forward. And I'll also tell you that while the basis of the complaint, the heart of the complaint is the First Amendment, it's very likely, stay tuned, that we will be adding other causes of action moving forward. One of those potentially is the new Florida law that was passed with Governor Ron DeSantis recently, that's still in a little bit of tied up in litigation, but there's a lot of other opportunities to hold big tech accountable moving forward.
Then holding them accountable means either breaking them up or changing Section 230, both of which I'm guessing would require Congress to act. Am I right on that?
Well, I think there are multiple avenues, and I think this is one of the important things about us using the judiciary and the president really leaning into the concept of using the courts as well as using public opinion and the legislative process. We've got the state legislatures, we've obviously got Congress, that there is a lot that can be done. And if Congress refuses to act, which to this point they have refused, then the Supreme Court, we believe, has been asking for a case like this, especially in the last few years, especially as the censorship and the banning and the shadow flagging has really ramped up. I believe that they want to have this case. They want to really think it through. They are the ultimate arbiters of the Constitution and what is First Amendment protection and what is not. Mm-hmm. So yes, short answer to your question, Congress can and should act. But if not, that's why the courts are there. And that's why we're really encouraged that we're going to have multiple lanes to see this through.
Yep, and why individual states like Florida, I think soon to be followed by Texas, are taking control and taking it into their own hands as well.
And a court case could force Congress to change something. So
that's exactly right.
Okay.
Here
Brooke,
we go.
Okay, thank you. Brooke Rollins, thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Great to have you.